like to take a picture of everybody here. See how we do this here. Nice. The internet's going to see your legs. And Twitter.
There's Twitter on that camera. The future is now.
Right?
Does that camera run Linux?
Absolutely, it does. All of these people think Windows
So quote me on that.
awesome in caps. All right, now everyone, this is Windows is awesome. And before we begin, I would like credit officially for my choice of font. This is a very important thing for me, and this means a lot to me. Windows is awesome, all in caps, Comic Sans. Let's move on. And before we get too far into this, nobody, and I mean nobody that I work with, which includes periodicals and very important and wonderful Linuxy companies, has anything to do with this whatsoever. Also, please, as with all of the garbage I tend to do, please watch until the end before you make a snarky comment. And I am not, under any circumstances, going to talk about phones or servers, because phones and servers are not awesome. They can be cool, and they can be important, but that's not what we're talking about today. We're talking about desktop computing and desktop computers and how they are awesome. Specifically, how Windows is awesome. Now, I am Brian Lundu, and I actually spent about 5 years at Microsoft in the late 90s and early aughts. I mostly worked on the not Windowsy part of Microsoft, where we worked on Mac software and Solaris software and whatnot. But technically I did work for Microsoft. That is the only reason that I am qualified to give this presentation today. Well, it's not the only reason. I would like to point out that these are very big. And these are brass. I would also like to give a little kudos to the people at LinuxFest Northwest. This is a Linux conference, and they did decide to put a session called Windows is Awesome, all in caps, on the conference schedule. That's pretty cool. Round of applause for LinuxFest. All right. So what exactly is awesome? What makes something awesome? Now, I actually had a whole plan here where I was going to whip out my Google tablet. There it is. And I was going to ask Google what makes awesome. So I'm going to do that real quick. And I'm going to see, and I haven't actually done this yet. I thought of this morning. Well, what happens? Okay, Google. What is awesome?
Awesome, extremely impressive or daunting, inspiring great admiration, apprehension, or fear.
With that settled. What we're about to dive into is the many and varied ways that Windows is awesome. Now, how did I come to this? How did I decide what makes Windows awesome? Because, I mean, obviously I could pick a lot of things. I didn't pull these out of my butt. Well, kind of did. But what I did is I went through and read all of the articles on the internet that had something along the lines of comparing Windows to Linux or comparing Windows to Mac, and those reasons that all of these journalists, all of these colleagues of mine that are so terrible, anyway, that say that Windows is awesome. What are their points? And the one that comes up the most is that Windows is familiar. And if you think about it, that's actually a pretty good point. How many of you guys know how to use Windows? All right, put your hands down, because everyone, I think, rose their hands. Raise your hands if you don't know how to use Windows. You're lying. There's no way. There's no way. This is exactly...
I raised my hand
I have the front, and I can talk and belittle you. You can't do the same to me. It's the rules of presentations, my friend. Exactly. If you go into any group of people, any group. If you go to a Windows conference, how many of them, if you said, how many of you are really comfortable with KDE? Like 4 of them are going to raise their hands, right? This is a Linux conference, and everyone is comfortable and familiar with using Windows. That kind of says something profoundly awesome. And there's a reason for that. And part of the reason is market share. This is the market share as of January 15th, and this is what we have. 91.2% desktop market share. This is blue. Mac has like 7% market share. Linux, which uses appropriately the color green, is this little thing here in purple. I have no idea what that is.
Chrome has some Chromebooks up there?
Now, the point here is Windows market share does not necessarily dictate awesome. It doesn't tell you who's the best. It really doesn't tell you that. All it tells you is what people use. But it also tells you what people are familiar with. And that is an incredibly important thing. Looking back over the years, Windows broke 90% market share with the release of Windows 3.1.1 in 1994. Raise your hand if you know the date today. You, what is the date today?
Sunday, April 26th.
What year per chance?
2015.
2015. Is that a bigger number than 1994? I thought so too. That is 21 years, actually over 21 years. I kind of fudged these numbers a little bit. The reality is it probably breached 90% in late 93, but I wanted to downplay how awesome Windows is here, so I gave it 94. That's 21 years. 21 years of total and complete domination by a platform. That doesn't happen for anything. Nothing, no cars, no movies, nothing, no musical group dominates for 21 years. You kind of have to be awesome in order to accomplish that. Just to put this in perspective, this is what the internet looked like in 1994. This is the first real public release of Mosaic, appropriately for Windows 3.1, back in 1994. That's how long ago this was. 1994, the top movie was Forrest Gump. Forrest Gump. How many people here were born after 1994? Quite a few of us. Forrest Gump came out before you guys were babies. How crazy is that? This. That is the #1 song of 1994. Boyz II Men's I'll Make Love to You. How many people here know that song very well? She does, and so does Schnookums over there. Afterwards, we can have a little sing-along. Can anyone tell me what this is?
Windows 95.
Windows 95? No? Windows XP. Windows XP. Wrong! This is KDE with the most popular theme on KDELook.org. That is not a joke. This is the most popular theme for KDE. KDE users, by and large, wish and hope and pine for their computer to look like Windows XP. That is a completely real fact. You can load up KDELook.org right now and look at that. Think what you will of it, but that means something. That says something when people who aren't even running the operating system are just yearning for the moment that they can make it look like it. So, moving away from familiarity for a second, because we could harp on that for a hell of a long time. Software. If you want software, you run Windows. How many people here actually run Windows at home? In a Linux conference? Be honest. Be honest. Okay, come on. Like half of you raised your hands, and I know like at least another quarter of you were lying by not raising your hands. Okay, of those of you that run just Linux, how many of you have wished that you could have run a specific piece of software that only runs on Windows? Yeah, right? Right? How many of you just run Windows? Just run Windows. Okay, how many of you that just run Windows, and there's quite a few of you here, by the way, ballsy move coming here. How many of you that just run Windows wished with all of your heart and soul that you could run a piece of software that only exists for Linux? Oh, you have an example?
I would really like to switch out the desktop environment on the computer.
All right, so you would like to make it look a little bit different. But in terms of actual software packages, you got everything you need, right?
Rubina.
SSH.
Yeah.
You have SSH for Windows. Shut up. The point is, so Office, Photoshop, Google Drive. There's no version of Google Drive really for Linux. How redonkulous is that? You got it for Windows. It's available for Windows. Games. Interestingly, this is the pie chart of games on Steam. Notice how the percentages, this is total number of games available of just Windows or games that are also available for Linux or Linux only. Notice that it's 91.7% just Windows, which actually mirrors almost exactly that earlier pie chart that showed the market share. But if you want games, you have to run Windows. Have to.
And it's upsetting.
It's upsetting to you. That man with the big beard is pissed. It's reasonable. Lots and lots and lots of games. So if you measure the awesomeness of a platform by the availability and awesomeness of the games, Windows clearly is awesome. Driver support. Windows is undoubtedly king. And again, that comes back down to the sheer market share numbers. You know, without any doubt, if you buy a laptop, it's going to work with Windows, right? You know it's going to work. You're going to get your Wi-Fi working, and it's not going to have to get hurled through a plate glass window. And that's pretty cool. There's people watching this through the window, and I like that a lot. So end of story on this one. Windows is simply king when it comes to driver support. Raise your hand. Have you ever had driver problems on Linux? Hands down. Raise your hand if you have driver's problems on Windows because you can't get a driver.
Yes.
Lies. Put your hands down. Windows is pre-installed. Almost every computer sold comes with Windows, with a very few exceptions. It's ready to run. It runs right out of the box, and if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Because it ain't broke, ergo you don't have to fix it. That's kind of phenomenal.
Add something for this.
I need to tell you a story about a popsicle. When I was a kid, I grew up in kind of central California. I grew up in Sacramento, California. Who here knows about the Sacramento Valley in California? It's hot as hell. And it's hot, and it's dry, and it's awful. So, as a kid, the way that you survive in that sort of oppressive, life-shattering environment is popsicles. You know, it's just this little kid, right? You know, going to school. I don't know how old I was. 6. Maybe 7 at the most. Who can tell me what that is right there? Specifically, what flavor is that?
Red.
Okay, those of you who said red is right. I don't know what flavor that is. This is red flavor. But, so I had a friend. I had this awesome friend. His name was Brandon when I was a kid. And we lived on this busy street. It was one of those, 4-lane thoroughfares. And if we left my house and I walked around the corner and I walked up about a block, I got to Brandon's house. And if I picked Brandon up there and said, okay, let's grab a couple of quarters, because this was the early 80s or something like that, we can go buy some popsicles. Now, there was a convenience store about another block down the line. So if we kept going about another block, we knew exactly how to get there. It took just a couple of minutes, and again, blazing heat, so we can't walk very far. We got to this convenience store, and they had these. And it was fantastic because we could break them apart and share them. We didn't. We kept them to ourselves. But we could have shared them if we wanted to. We paid a quarter, maybe 2 quarters, and we got a popsicle. It was phenomenal. And we literally did this almost every day, all summer long one summer. Because it was familiar. Again, going back to that familiar thing. It was available. It was the equivalent of Windows being pre-installed. I knew, without a doubt, that I could grab my friend, grab a couple of quarters without my mom noticing, and get down and buy this red, delicious flavored popsicles and stave off the summer heat for yet another day. And the parents knew where we were. They didn't see us for a few minutes. They figured we were getting popsicles. And when we came back with our red mouths, they knew it. And it was fine. And it worked really, really well, just like Windows does. This is what Windows 10 was looking like a couple of weeks back. Raise your hand if you think this looks nice. Okay, thoughts of Microsoft aside, thoughts of Windows aside. Raise your hand if this looks nice. If if Canonical came out with this, would you be like, damn, nice? I mean, a few things I could complain about, sure, but look how pretty this is. I mean, just the wallpaper alone is kind of badass. It's an awesome looking system. It's nice looking. It really is. It's pleasant to the eyes. There's clean lines. It's a good looking system. But more importantly, they clearly took at least some risks. And some risks are important for being awesome. And the people at Microsoft did that in Windows 10. Now we could make fun of, say, Windows ME or something like that, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about current Windows. And current Windows and future Windows actually looks pretty damned awesome. And there's a reason for that.
Too many cooks.
Too many cooks. I mean, who's heard this phrase before? It's true, right? Everyone in their family has an aunt or grandma or someone who has a recipe. Some recipe that's like the family recipe, right? Sometimes it's soup, sometimes it's like a beef brisket or a pie, but it's a recipe. And there's one person who is dedicated to making that recipe, right? Like there's a family event, there's some aunt that brings a pot of something to that event. And she brings it to every event, and it's the best pot of something ever. And it's the thing she makes, solo. She makes it by herself. What if we approached it from a different point of view? What if before the potluck, your aunt invited over everyone in the neighborhood? The family from Australia down the street, who like whatever sort of food Australians eat. I don't know actually the examples for that, but I'm assuming it's weird.
Kangaroo.
Kangaroo. They eat kangaroo. She's trying to make chicken noodle soup. Now something's going to go awry here, because everyone, the kitchen's filled. It's filled with 12 different opinionated 47-year-old women. And they're all trying to make a soup. How is that soup going to come out? Is it going to be delicious, or are you going to avoid it like the plague? Of course you're going to avoid it. It's going to be mega gross, because you have no idea what all 12 of those people are going to be putting into it. When I was in college, and don't get too excited, I dropped out pretty quick. I took this class. It was called Interpersonal Communications. Right? It was the stupidest class I've ever taken. Now, they wanted us to learn to communicate with people. So they paired us off into these little groups of 5. And we all had our own little groups of 5. And every group had to do a presentation on a topic. And it wasn't so important what the presentation was. It was that we worked together as a team and all that good stuff. My team did real bad. Now, I'd like to blame it on my team members, because they were a bunch of dillholes. I got a very bad grade in this class. Other teams got a decent grade, but the reality is their presentation sucked almost as bad as ours did, but they followed the syllabus better. Everyone seemed to have a hard time coming together as a group to build a cohesive vision and present a single idea forward. I'm up here in front of this group of people right now, and there's just one of me. There's not me and this guy. Not me and this guy at all. Definitely not all of us. What if all of us was up here and that guy sitting on the floor was our only audience member?
Yeah.
This would be the stupidest presentation ever, and no one would want to see it, because we would just suck at giving it. We wouldn't know what we were doing. We wouldn't know what the idea was. We wouldn't know when to talk, because everyone else would be rambling. Sometimes too many cooks simply spoil the broth. Microsoft, I don't know if you guys noticed, is a single company. They are driven by a single vision. Therefore, they have really one cook, and if anyone else disagrees, they go away. Hold on a second. There we go. So
out.
everything I just said is the most ridiculous thing ever. I would like to take a couple of minutes in a very non-Comic Sans world, which, by the way, who knows what this font is? This right here. That is the Ubuntu font. Now, I'm not an Ubuntu-loving guy, but that is a damn good font. So I just would like to give a quick shout-out, where's all the cameras, to all the people who worked on this font. You did a really good job. All right, so I am Brian Leduc, I like Linux, blah, 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 blah. This still holds. This is true. This remains remains true and will remain true until the end of time. Okay.
There's still Comic Sans on there.
That's actually not Comic Sans.
Oh, is it not?
As weird as that sounds. Yeah.
Okay.
Ask me afterwards. But yeah, that's a different. That's it was part of LibreOffice. Anyway, so familiarity. The point still holds. Windows is familiar. Everyone in here knows how to use it, right? But does that make something awesome? Does the commonality of something make something awesome? Does something winning make something awesome? How many of you are Seahawks fans? How many of you are decidedly not Seahawks fans? Was it awesome that the Seahawks won? No, you don't think it was. There we go, point made. How many of you are super excited about using Windows? Super stoked. If it's awesome, you have to be super stoked. Why isn't anyone raising their hands? There's Windows users. There's Windows users here. Windows users.
Because they're super stoked about Apple.
Stoked? Yeah, super stoked about Apple.
Nobody's that heartless.
No one's that heartless. Okay, so we've established all of us know how to use Windows, right? We're all familiar with it. Why don't we like it? What is wrong with us as people that we don't like what's already familiar to us?
Because we have to.
Because we have to? That's a fair point. Here's what I would posit. Risk takers, those using something different and building something different, survive. From a genetic approach, looking back at all of the cultures and all of the groups of people throughout history, those that have been willing to take risks survive the longest. Now, granted, sometimes you have a crazy uncle who decides to light a cart on fire and something really bad happens, and he doesn't survive. But maybe his family does, who now knows not to do that. Risk takers survive. So familiarity in and of itself doesn't actually necessarily mean a good thing. In fact, I would posit that familiarity breeds contempt. You get used to something, and you start to dislike it over time. How many of you who currently use Linux used to be a Windows user? Over time, did you grow increasingly dissatisfied? As a general rule, right? It breeds contempt. I would say that you have to take that a step further, because it's not just familiarity. Something amazing. Back to the Future. Great movie or sucky movie? Great movie. How long ago was that made? Longer than since Windows has become the dominant market player, right? Still an awesome movie. Still remains an awesome movie. So it's not familiarity. I've seen Back to the Future. That actually was the plan. I can't count how many times I've seen Back to the Future. All three of them. I don't know why I watch them over and over again. I know all the friggin' words, and every single time I think Marty McFly is adorable. And it's great. It's great, and it doesn't make me have contempt for it. But suckiness does. And I would posit to say that that's really the problem that we run up against on the Windows side of things. Now again, this stands. It's been dominant for over 21 years now. What if things were still the same? What if things stayed the same since 1994? This would be how we browse the web. This would be it. Sure, we have animated GIFs, but that's really about it. This would be the only movie that we watch when we go to the movie theater. And as great as this particular scene from Forrest Gump is, it's just not going to make me happy. And this would be the only song you hear on the radio every day when you drive into work. I swear to God, I would have so much road rage.
At least it's not Justin Bieber.
At least it's not Justin Bieber? Dude, who said that? Who said that? Were you alive when Boyz II Men, I'll Make Love to You came out? It's so much worse.
I'll look it up on YouTube later.
I'm done with what you said. So, okay, let's talk about software for a second. Let's move away from familiarity, because honestly, we could debate about that for a while. But software. Windows still has all the software, right? Or does it? What is this? Raise your hand if you know. Lady in the back.
Office on Android.
Damn straight this is Office on Android. Now, this is not a pro Linux session. This is not what this is about. This is about Windows. The point of making Windows important because it has the applications you need simply doesn't exist anymore. Now, applications may be available on Android, they may be available on Mac, some of them are available on Linux desktop, sure. But the key is here, this is a full version of Microsoft Word running on non-Windows platforms, which means that you simply can't say, well, I need Windows because of X, Y, and Z anymore. If the company that makes Windows is building their flagship software for as many other platforms as they can scramble to create at this point, that makes a really clear and compelling case that Windows has simply lost its edge. Who knows what this is? Same basic idea. This is friggin' Photoshop. Freaking Photoshop on Linux. I mean, it's Android, but under the thing it's on Linux, which means it's Photoshop not on Windows. It's not even that it's Photoshop on a Mac. It's Photoshop on a platform that's not Windows or Mac, that Photoshop hasn't traditionally existed on. We've gotten to this point now where the underdog operating systems are getting the same applications in many cases, especially in the big cases, that the quote-unquote big dog operating systems are, which takes away the competitive advantage for Windows. It takes away the case that Windows is awesome because I need Photoshop or I need Microsoft Office. And games. Same basic idea with a little twist. Windows has more games. This is clear. This hasn't changed. I mean, it's changed a little in that, Macs have more games and Linux has more games, and there's more portable platforms that have an increasing number of games, and that's great. But market share, again, doesn't make something awesome. Simply having a huge number of games doesn't make something awesome. Being awesome makes something awesome. Case in point. What is this car? It's a Toyota. Specifically, it's a 1994 Toyota Corolla, which looks a hell of a lot like 90% of all other cars on the road. This Toyota Corolla, which I'm pretty sure that might be one, and that might be one, is reliable, right? Who here has owned a Toyota Corolla? Did it run pretty well? Yeah, pretty well, right? Fairly inexpensive, runs pretty well. It's a decent vehicle. It's okay. Would anyone who's owned a Toyota Corolla qualify that as awesome? This is one of the highest selling cars of all time. It's definitely the highest selling car in that year in the United States of America. Does not make it awesome. What's that? It's a fucking Tesla. Which one's awesome? Tesla. Is there anyone who thinks differently? One person. Of course not. Everyone agrees that Tesla is purely awesome. And is there a big market share for Tesla? No. No, there's not. I mean, they can barely keep up with demand because they can barely make them half the time. But it's awesome. It's incredibly awesome. It is astoundingly awesome. And that's a Toyota Corolla. So, the point is, awesomeness is awesomeness. Not market share, not familiarity, not availability. It's being awesome. What's that icon? Steam. Particularly the Steam OS version. Is that awesome?
Yeah.
That's kind of awesome, right?
I like purple.
Valve is coming. Likes purple. Valve is coming along and shaking up the industry by providing a platform, an open platform, to get people to build, different companies to build their own consoles. And with that, a complete distribution platform. This is interesting. This really shakes things up against what, say, Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo were doing in the console space. And this has nothing really to do with Windows. Valve is staking their future on a non-Windows platform to do something truly awesome. Same goes here. This is an NVIDIA Shield tablet. NVIDIA's got, consoles and everything else coming out right now. And specifically what I'm picturing here is grid. Basically, the ability to play games that would normally run on Windows, streamed Netflix style. They're high resolution, they're HD games, and they play great. And that's kind of amazing. Who wants to have Netflix to play video games? Yeah, if it works, it's awesome, right? Yeah. That actually works. Now, this is not a pimp for NVIDIA, because you know what? Other people could come along and do something like this too. But that's awesome. And that has nothing to do with Windows. I mean, on the back end, there may be something servery to do with Windows. But for as far as we're concerned, the device, it's not running Windows. But it's awesome. So in the game space, the things that are happening that are truly awesome, that are truly shaking things up, are not Windows related, which gets rid of that whole games make Windows awesome argument entirely. Driver support. Windows has been the market leader for a hell of a long time. That is clear, which means something very simple. They don't try. When you install Windows, what's the first thing you have to do? Update, and before that even, install your Ethernet and Wi-Fi drivers.
Put in a key code.
Put in a key code. Yeah. When you install Linux, sometimes your Wi-Fi doesn't work. Most of the time nowadays, it does, right? I mean, most of the time it does. How do you get your Wi-Fi working, let's say on Linux?
Google it.
Okay. That's a pretty good answer. But usually it works, right? Right out of the box, it works. You don't actually have to do anything. It's built in. The same goes true. Again, this isn't about Linux. On a Mac, when you get your new Mac and you install a new version of OS X, does your Wi-Fi work?
No.
Depends if you buy Mac hardware.
Yeah, assuming you bought Mac hardware, it works, right? On Windows, that isn't the case, which means a few things. One, the user experience is crappy. That degrades its awesomeness right there. But more importantly, it means because of their market share position, they simply aren't trying as hard. On the Linux side or on the Mac side, they know that, or we know, if we screw up, we're going to get dinged for it. Which means not only do we have to match what Microsoft does in terms of functionality, we have to come up with new ways to supply drivers. Like if you run, let's say Ubuntu, and you need to get some non-free, non-open source video card drivers. You get a little restricted driver alert. Here you go. Do you want to install them automatically, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. These sorts of things help to push the other platforms forward because they know they have to do it because they've been the other underdogs. Microsoft has not had that problem, so they don't try as hard, which means they've kind of failed at the awesomeness side. Windows pre-install. Here's the thing. Being pre-installed, again, does not make it awesome. In fact, I would wager to say it's the exact opposite. If it ain't broke, don't fix it is the stupidest freaking saying in the world. All of the amazing things that have happened throughout human history is because someone decided to take something that they thought was working fine, break it, and build something better. There was a period of time when in medical science, leeches were awesome. They were. They actually did something. You let off a little blood pressure, blah, blah, blah. Sometimes a leech could actually save a person's life. Most of the time it was a pretty stupid idea. But someone decided, you know what? Let's try something different. Let's break it and build something better. And this is what the competitors to Windows have been doing. And what Windows as a team, the team behind Windows, is really just now starting to do. They're trying to break their Windows and build something better. Because they've noticed this as well. But they're a little bit late to the party on that. Popsicles. Zach. Bomb pop. It's freaking awesome. That guy? What's that?
Ice cream sandwich.
What's that beautiful motherfucker at the end? Creamsicle. Oh, there's kids. I heard a baby. Sorry not to swear. That's a creamsicle. It's delicious. Does any one of you, and I mean anyone, want the red flavored popsicle over these guys? No, that's a horrible idea. So, back to my childhood. Same friend. One day, I went out running errands with my mom. We were driving around. It was summertime, and we went to this little convenience store. I went into that convenience store, and they had a freezer section. And in the freezer section, they had all three of these things. And it blew my mind. I mean, we were kind of a poor family. We didn't really buy, creamsicles and brand name popsicles. We bought the red popsicle thing. And it was amazing. And my mom let me get Bomb Pop. Brought the Bomb Pop. So it was amazing. And as we got in the car to leave, I buckle up and I'm just giddy. And we turn the corner. We turn left, I believe. And I look out ahead of me, and I see this other convenience store. That's the one I had been going to all summer long to get the red popsicle. This Bomb Pop didn't actually cost any more than the stupid red popsicle we had been getting. And it turns out that the place where we could fetch that Bomb Pop was a block and a half further down the line. And we could have been going there the entire time. So the next day, I walked over to my friend Brandon's house. And I said, Brandon, come with me. And so we start going, and he knows we're going for popsicles. And we keep going. And I just got this, poop-eating grin on my face. We keep walking, and I'm like, no, keep going. And he starts getting nervous. We'd never walked around that corner before. We were little kids. It was scary at that point for him. I knew. Truth be told, I was a little nervous because I didn't tell my mom I was walking that far. But Brandon, he's like, we didn't tell our moms we were going here. What if something happens? We're gonna get kidnapped. Because that happens all the time when you get ice cream. And so we kept going. I convinced him to keep on. He was so nervous. We get in there. He was still doubting me. He thought I was just stupid. He's like, no, come on. We'll just go to the other place. Then we walk to the back, because the freezer section was in the back. And we stop. I pivot my tiny little friend with the fro. And he sees these. He had the same reaction I did. He freaked the hell out. You're a kid. This is a cool thing when you're a kid, right? But it took a leap of faith for him to make a change to do something awesome. He had to go way outside of his comfort zone. He had to break something that was working completely fine. Red popsicles made us stay alive. But then we had a Bomb Pop. Now, granted, that is still the same flavor. This is just red. But this is light flavor, and that's blue flavor.
It tastes like freedom.
It tastes like freedom. To be fair, nothing beats a creamsicle. All right, creamsicles? Yeah. But he would have never, if my mom hadn't happened to take me to that convenience store. I don't even know why we were in there. Because, when you're a kid, you don't pay attention to what your mom's doing. But we were in there. If we hadn't happened into there, who knows how old I would have been before I would have discovered Bomb Pops. And then who knows what would have happened to my poor little friend. He could have died. Sometimes, even if something works, you have to break it and do something awesome. Like this. This looks pretty awesome, actually. Really. If we had one of our cool KDE or Gnome or someone, hell, look at the slide where KDE is like, yeah. But this looks cool.
Hope it has that date where it doesn't come on there.
But it's one thing. It's one look. It's one look and feel. It's one environment. Do you want to stay using this and looking at this every single day? Or do you want to be able to make change?
Fickle.
This is one of the most amazing paintings of all time. This is American Gothic by Grant Ward. Look at those guys. Look at the details. You get right up in there. You guys can't see because I'm in front of it, but look at that. It looks amazing. I don't know what she's looking at over there, but it's an amazing painting, right? Everyone's seen this painting before. If this painting is in a museum, it's a centerpiece. It's one that they draw people in with. Keep looking at it. Don't stop looking at American Gothic by Grant Ward. Notice her brooch. Notice her collar. Notice his pitchfork. Notice her whatever expression that would creep you out if you lived with her. Just keep looking at it for a minute. Keep looking at American Gothic by Grant Ward. Under no circumstances look at any picture other than American Gothic by Grant Ward. Is everyone doing that right now? No one's got their phones up and looking at different pictures right now, are you?
Wouldn't think of that.
I like how intently this guy's looking. He's like really checking out American Gothic by Grant Ward. Keep looking at it! It's really loud. What if, hypothetical, every painting in the world, let's say 91% of all paintings in the world, were American Gothic by Grant Ward? Instead of mermaids or whatever pictures you have in the bathroom, what if it's American Gothic by Grant Ward? You get out of the shower, you open it up, you're naked, glistening. You walk over there, and she's looking at you. She's judging you. You go around to the kitchen. You're making a souffle. American Gothic by Grant Ward. The living room, over the fireplace, American Gothic by Grant Ward. You go to a museum. It's row after row of judging women and very, very sad men. Speaking of which, that's his daughter. Did anyone know that? I gave this presentation down at the Southern California Linux Expo. I did not realize that was his daughter. Someone from the back raised his hand and said it was his daughter because I made some joke or another about him being married to a very unhappy woman. I just think that's weird. Too many cooks spoil the broth. It's a good saying. It's a good saying, right? It applies to soup because it's a quote about broth. How about many hands make light work? Or the more the merrier. Those are really good sayings too. Does anyone disagree with those two sayings? Does anyone have a problem with the more the merrier? I hate people. People. It's the best Linux conference quote. Thing is this. We can create quotes and apply them to anything. In fact, I'm pretty confident that you can find Star Wars or Star Trek quotes and apply them to absolutely any position you have and make it a compelling argument. But that doesn't really mean anything. That doesn't make something awesome or not awesome. Poor kiddo. I like those two quotes more than I like the top quote. Like if I had to choose between those three quotes, I'd probably go more the merrier. And then many hands make light work because I'm lazy. But then spoil the broth because I prefer sandwiches to soup. Now, there is not an official end to this. Because the reality is there are always going to be people out there that make a profound statement that something is better than something else, or something is more awesome than something else. But the reality is, at this point in human history, Windows has absolutely lost that place. There may have been a point where it was awesome. There may have been that point. That is not this point anymore. And it doesn't matter that we think Linux may be more awesome, and it does not matter if we think Mac may be more awesome. It simply matters that Windows is not awesome. And that is where I'm going to leave you today. These are the ways that you can yell at me. I did not put any of my Twitter and whatnot on here because I was lazy, but I decided to write a paragraph about it instead. But feel free to yell at me. If you are watching this on YouTube, and you see people yelling at me on YouTube, looking at the cameras that are variously being held around here right now, and you feel that they did not watch all of it, please berate them as harshly as you can. It is very, very, very important that you do that. Thank you, everybody. Enjoy the last few hours of LinuxFest, and I will see you next year.
Thank you.